Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to the New Mainstream podcast,
where we explore the impact of multicultural consumers on marketing and media.
I'm your host, Mario Carrasco, and co-founder of Think Now. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the New Mainstream podcast. I'm Mario Carrasco. My guest today, excited to have her, Arnetta Whiteside, Senior Vice President of Multicultural Consulting, Agency, and Brand Readiness at Publicis Media. Arnetta is a rare blend of strategist, operator, and educator. She builds systems that make inclusive media perform and is passionate about mentoring the next generation while doing it. From knowledge management and research to change leadership, Arnetta helps complex organizations shift from performative campaigns to accountable, always on inclusion. Today, we'll unpack what readiness really looks like, looking forward into 2026, and how to measure it. Welcome, Arnetta.
Thank you, Mario. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we've connected over the years, so excited to finally have you on and have you share
Yeah.
your expertise. So before we jump in, because you're one of our first guests, I know we're recording it in 2025, but um, we'll probably publish early on in 2026. But I want to talk a little bit about your career journey. Like I love starting with that one because it's pretty rare. People are like, yeah, I want to get into multicultural media or research. Like it's always an interesting path. So I would love to hear how you got here.
It is an interesting path, and this isn't the path that I selected per se. It's the path that kind of chose me. So, when I was in college, I did do my undergraduate, and I had a marketing major with a communications minor. Went back to grad school for for organizational design and organizational development. But in the interim, I interned while I was in undergrad. I interned at a little known defunct I'm going to call them rep firm, Petrie Media. No longer exists. Um, and that's how I got into kind of the advertising and specifically local media buying. And I did that for the first 15 years of my career. But I also knew that there was something else calling me, and I didn't necessarily know what that was. And I wanted to move into strategy, and it was just um, it was taking a chance on yourself and then hoping that someone else could see that what you saw in yourself, and giving you the opportunity, right? So I think opportunity is always something that you look for, and it doesn't always come, but there are moments and times that everything aligns. And I think when I got to Publicis, I was well 15 years into my career. Again, still in local investment. And I just so happened to be sitting outside of Lisa Torres, who was at the time the president of multicultural within Zenith Media. And I was like, I need to know who this lady is. She's, a little bit of flair, a little bit of, um, pizzazz, a lot of knowledge, a lot of passion for what it was that she did. And I just became friendly with her, trying to, just talk to her, learn as much as I could. And when the opportunity finally opened up, I was like, hey.
So is that how you got into the multicultural?
That is literally how I got into multicultural. Yeah. She had been elevated to president of what is now called Cultural Quotient, which is the Center of Excellence of Multicultural within all of Publicis Media. Um, and she was looking to staff her team. And I ran into her at an event and was like, hey, I saw that you posted a position on LinkedIn. You think? What's up?
Yeah, so
And
so
she
this
was
is
like,
so good, like advice. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but like
yeah, no.
we get a lot of early career listeners, also people that are interested in multicultural. And I've had multiple guests like, how did you break into what you wanted to? They looked at someone, in your case, Lisa Torres, and was like, you know what, like that looks cool. Like I want to,
Yep.
and you made the effort, right, to make a connection and stay abreast of what she was doing. And when the opportunity struck, you were like, hey, like I just think that's really, I don't know. It's like I think we tend to overthink, like how do I
I
get into
do.
something, and it's like,
Yeah.
hey, like there's someone there that that's in the position that you'd like to be in, befriend them, right?
Befriend them. And you know what? Like, and befriend them, but befriend them for something that's mutually beneficial to both of you, right? So at the time, I was also leading our internal resource group for women of color. And so I was kind of like, okay, how can I be a part of what she's doing, but how can she also be a part of what we're doing to help mentor the next generation of women and women of color leaders within Publicis? And it just so happened that we kind of clicked. Like it was easy, it was natural, it was her mentoring me on, things that were happening on my team, things that, I should look for in my career, questions I should be asking, and like, but you're right. It is, you have to really figure out where you want to spend your time and making sure you develop and nurture relationships, because this, bottom line, I don't care what anybody says today, this is a relationship business, always has been, always will be. Anybody who treats it as a transaction, you will not last very long, quite
100%.
frankly. Right? But and you just have to, go for what you have to bet on yourself, honestly.
And I think
And if
that second part you shared about, so yeah, step one, befriend, but step two, you connected on something that you're truly passionate about with someone, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
mentoring, um, and that's maybe even more important than reaching out to someone. Like it can't be one sided. It can't be transactional. You were like, hey, I'm doing this thing I'm passionate about. How do I help? And that's how you really get ahead, and not only in
that is
career
how.
but in life.
Yeah. Yes, yes. Mentorship is a two-way street. It is not just the person mentoring you. Like, they're learning something from you as well. But you have to know what it is that you can bring to them that they can learn from you. If I think about a younger generation, it's, what are you doing on TikTok? Because quite frankly, I don't know TikTok, and I need to know it for work, but I'm not.
You're not TikToking.
I'm not a TikToker, So, what is it that another generation can help me learn about social media that I don't necessarily always know or understand, or even know how to find trends or anything like that? Like, what are you bringing to that relationship that that other person can benefit from as well? That is a very important part of mentorship that I don't think a lot of people really, like you said, truly understand, of how to even just, navigate their own careers, honestly.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's also, one thing I also advise people to, not everybody's comfortable with the face to face thing.
Hmm.
Not everybody's comfortable with networking. And to me, like, you don't have to do that. Like, you can make relationships online. I mean, you
You
mentioned
can.
social media. It's like, if you're not comfortable with that, provide some value online. Like, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that
Listen,
which is doable.
I'll be the first person to tell you, I don't like networking. I know that I have to do it as part of my jobs, right? But
Same.
to
Yeah.
be in a room of people, and I have social anxiety, so that's another part of it. But to be in a room with people I don't necessarily know, then it creates more of a disconnect than it does a connection for me. So there are times where I'll meet someone and then email them off to the side, or connect with them on LinkedIn and say, hey, met you, would love to meet up or connect in a different way than in this large setting, just because that it doesn't bode well for me. So don't feel like I'm talking to the audience out
Yeah.
there. Don't feel like you have to go to networking events to do networking. Like, that's
No.
not the only way to do networking. And don't feel obligated to, eh, mentors, don't feel obligated to respond to everybody, because not everybody deserves your mentorship. Not everybody deserves the time and the expertise that you have to, to move forward. Like, and I say that because there are a lot of people that reach out to you. There are a lot of people that even reach out to me. But if I don't necessarily see why we have a connection, or why you're really reaching out to me, or I can read between the lines to figure out what it is that you're really looking for, if it's not mutually beneficial, again, we're not going to do it.
Yeah.
We're not going
No,
to do it.
it's
Yeah.
about, I mean, for me, it's like I know when someone's authentically wants to connect and learn,
Yes.
and like we're in marketing, we can sniff out the fake, it's like it's you know.
You do. You do.
So what year was that you started to get into the multicultural kind of inclusion
So,
space?
my career, I've always done multicultural across my career. Even when I was in local broadcast, I handled Hispanic marketing, right, or Hispanic media. I didn't officially transition until 2018 ish or so. So 2 years before the pandemic, and then the pandemic happened, and then the social reckoning of, summer of 2020 happened. And because everyone had nothing, and quite frankly, we always say, if this had been any other year where we did not have a pandemic, it would not have been such a focus, or such, laser focus on. But because, people had nothing else to do, people were home, and social media took over, and media took over. And so there was nowhere to go but to focus on some of the things that were actually happening in our nation, that for our communities we've always known to be happening, right? It just so happened everybody else was sitting down for a moment too, right?
Yeah, I mean, and it was, I mean, the pandemic was terrible. The murder of George
Yes.
Floyd was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but us being in this space, I think it felt like, wow, we're making some positive movement. So you've seen, I mean, you've been in it for a while, so you've seen it. Like this gets into like inclusion as I think for you, you've dedicated your career. It's part of your ethos, um, and I think for many companies that we work with, it is part of the ethos. Like, what is the difference between inclusive media as a moment, which we saw, I think, in 2020? We're
Mm-hmm.
still seeing. Well, I was going to say we're still seeing not that much, but um, what's the difference between a moment versus a system in when we talk about
Yeah.
media?
Yeah. So there is a very clear line between a moment and a system, right? A moment really is symbolism, symbiotic. Everybody's having that kumbaya moment. That is fleeting, right? A system is structural. Like, it is baked into the ethos of what you're doing. And quite frankly, m- mm, we have a lot of brands where the ones that are more progressive have it baked in, right? I think there is still some opportunity for other brands um who want to ideally be more progressive to bake it into their ethos as well. They may say that they're doing it, but they're doing it in moments in time where it's not consistent, and it's that consistency that becomes part of your system, that becomes part of the structure and part of your ethos, and it just naturally happens. um I quite frankly, sometimes I'm still waiting for it to just naturally happen.
What so you have an interesting purview from a media side. You see the dollars go in. I'm assuming you see how they perform. Like, do you see, and if you could share a case study, that'd be cool. You don't have to mention brands. These companies that are more progressive, that it's ingrained in their systems. Do you see that they're getting more ROI than those that's a moment? Because we know the numbers, we know what consumers are
Mhm.
growing, we know who's spending money, we know who is brand loyal. And so we see the data, so we see a different side. But from a media
Yeah.
side, like those that have it systematically ingrained in their processes, do you see that ROI?
So the funny thing about ROI is that it has to be measured, and it has to be measured and attributable to something or a community or a particular consumer group, right? And if you don't have that baked into your ethos as well, you can't really look at what the true ROI is, because ROI in this moment is still going to be total market.
You're getting at something that's a real problem in our industry, which is not, it's not the investment, although that's a huge problem.
Yeah,
It's the measurement, but
it's
that's directly linked, right?
measurement is directly linked to any outcome that you're going to receive from either media or a business outcome. And if the business themselves also won't share what the outcomes are supposed to be with the media agency, the only thing we can do is media KPIs. And media KPIs are spots and dots, reach, frequency, etc., right?
Like, I mean, I'm not to dismiss it, but like it's kind of vanity metrics, right? Like, okay, you got
It
a million
is.
impressions, so like, so what?
So what? So what did it do? What revenue did it generate at the brand? And if the brand isn't telling you what the revenue generation was from your media, then okay, so the media worked. Or I would say, I won't even say the media worked. What I will say is the media performed the way we expected it to.
Are there any industries that have measurement right, that are like and when I say right, I mean from an inclusion perspective, from a multicultural perspective, or is there like an industry that's
I don't think any one industry has it right. I think there are
wow?
certain brands that may have it halfway there. 90%. I'm gonna give them 90%. They have it 90% there. But there's still that 10% that we're like, we could do a little bit better. Could do a little bit better. There's always room for growth, right? There's always room for improvement. There are brands that, like I said, that are a little more progressive in how they measure, attribute, look at audiences, etc., and determine where that ROI is actually coming from. But I think as an industry, we have to do better. And it's not solely from a multicultural or an inclusive perspective. I just think more holistically, we've got to do better at measurement. Measurement is, media measurement is, like you said, vanity metrics. I mean, it performs. Okay, so what after the performance?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so like an industry, for example, that we see, because we've had conversations. We're getting a little bit into the media space with our audience that I see is more advanced, and I'm curious. Do you see that as like insurance and pharma? Like, and partly because
Yeah.
like for insurance specifically, measuring that KPI of like you clicked on this landing page and gave me some info is pretty clear. Um, Does that track with what you see on the media spend side or not necessarily?
So I wouldn't necessarily say that that tracks the same way. I think so. Performance is relative, right? Performance is relative based on how you've set up a campaign to be able to measure performance, whether it's media or site performance or even down to click through rates, video what am I look what word am I looking for? Video completion rates, what have you. Um, I think even with insurance, they have to be, because they are highly regulated. Like the two industries that you're talking about are very highly regulated. And so they have to be very careful about what it is or how they're measuring and how they're even attributing media or audiences to a particular campaign to be able to measure and perform per se. So while you might be able to get clicks from their website, you may not be able to connect who is clicking because of SPD, right? Sensitive private data. Even with healthcare, you're definitely not going to be able to attribute um, you know, that sensitive private data to what a person is actually doing um, within media. I think those two industries, because they are more highly regulated, they do more work on the upfront, way upstream, to make sure that they are looking at the right attributes for their consumers to be able to reach them in more authentic, and honestly, I hate the word authentic, but in more intentional ways, right? Because that intentionality for them is going to net business outcomes. I don't necessarily see that in other industries, because those under other industries are a lot of times just looking for awareness, big awareness, reach, right? And not very often using media as a play to connect or drive actual business outcomes.
Mm. No, that's yeah, and that totally tracks with us where you're talking about that investment in the upfront, right? Because they're the
Hmm.
ones investing in a ton of research to get it right. Getting into the weeds a little bit in terms of measurements, like for you, you mentioned some brands are like 90%. On the other side of that, like what's some minimum KPIs like when you're coming in that you recommend? Like I know we have our wish list of all of them, but like what are some key things for like listeners that are in the media space that want to do something in multicultural or not total
Yeah.
market? Like what's some just minimum viable measurement?
I think you have to figure out first, what is the brand impact, right? What's the one thing that we have to actually measure, and what does that mean for that brand? For
What
some
is
it's
what does brand impact mean? Like
so what's the business impact? Like what are we actually trying to do for not just a campaign, but for this particular brand or business? Wh- wh- What's the
is it lead generation? Is it sales? Is it
Exactly.
awareness?
It
Gotcha.
could be lead generation, it could be sales, it could be brand health, it could be awareness, it could be, I want to increase my consideration with shifts in perception. How am I relevant within a particular audience? Like, what first of all, let's really define and clarify what those parameters are first, and then we can get to the other things,
Yeah, so
because
now
if
we're not even talking KPI yet. You're like, what are you gonna do with this media? And like, do
what
you find that there's clients that come and they're like, we want to spend all this money, but don't even have it defined? Like, I mean, you don't have to call brands out, but I'm just like, I'm just curious because that's, I feel
Um,
like that's a,
y- yeah, because a lot of times the campaigns, specifically when you start to look at multicultural campaigns or inclusive campaigns, they are, well, we don't really have business KPIs, but we have
Mm,
media KPIs, right? Or we have more things that are more about brand health, but they're not even tracking the brand health, right? So you want to increase your consideration or intent to purchase, but you haven't set up the campaign in a way to be able to really track or measure that. Okay. So again, goes back to what impact do you want to have with your brand with a particular audience. From there we can then start to set up what's the best type of campaign to do for you. How long does the campaign need to be on in order for us to get clear measurement, and a clear understanding of how this is going to work for a particular audience. So there are a whole bunch of different things that have to be in play in order for us to be able to truly measure whether or not we've gotten to the original outcome, which is, again, what's the impact.
yeah, no, that's real because yeah, I mean, I think that points to an issue that we see, right? Like so many times we work with brands who do amazing research. There's a playbook there, but it wasn't necessarily tied to a business objective.
Right.
And you have this awesome research deck that you present, and it just sits there, and no one acts on it. And I'm assuming it happens on the media side, right?
Happens on the media side as well. No, and it's because I go back to, you didn't bake it into the ethos. You don't have it in your system, right? And if it's not in your system, it doesn't get done. In I have friends that work in HR, and they're always saying, and what I would call, I don't know if it's called talent and inclusion, or if it's called, they're not calling it DEI anymore. So whatever it is called,
What yeah, I feel it. Yeah,
whatever it is called in your organization at
inclusion
this
now, I
point.
think. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just inclusion now. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, but they always say if it's not measured, whatever gets tracked gets measured, right? Or whatever is measured gets tracked. And I say the same thing for multicultural or inclusive media. If you're not tracking it, if you're not measuring it, you can't track whether or not it's actually working in your organization or for your particular brand. And you know it, Tracking means consistency. Tracking doesn't mean going in one time for 6 weeks and it did not meet the vanity metrics that we were looking for, so it didn't work. No, 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 no. Did it not work, or did you not put in enough time to make sure that it worked? Did you consult with the experts in your organization who know multicultural media or inclusive media to actually pull together a strategy that would actually work for that particular audience? Did you know the audience that you actually wanted to go after?
That's key. I mean, and that gets at like so let's assume the brand um has done the work. They know, okay, here's the goal, here's the audience. How do you deal with with creative testing, or like even before the creatives create, like how do you test for like this is going to resonate with this group of people? Like what are some things that have worked, that you've seen work?
So I would say, again, it goes back to it being a part of the ethos. I've created what's called a framework called code, right? And code basically is culture, opportunity, design, and engagement. And if you have all of those things embedded in how you are going to market and how you are looking at your brand and what needs to happen, where are you a part of culture already? Where's the opportunity? How are we designing this to be inclusive of everyone? Do you have products that are actually inclusive for the particular consumer that you're trying to reach? What's the engagement? Where's the engagement? How are we pulling all of this together? When you have all of those things from the very beginning, creative naturally is embedded in it. I very often see where creative and media don't always align because one is being done without the other. And in order for, honestly, for for the creative idea to land with a consumer group, it has to be in the place and space where that consumer group is more receptive to receiving that message and actually acting on it. And a lot of times, well, I won't say a lot of times, there are times where creative is developed and the idea is developed in isolation of media, and then media has to retrofit the idea into a media campaign.
Yeah, it loses the organicness, right?
It loses the organicness. Where I have seen this work really really well is when creative and media are lockstep from audience insights, audience development, understanding of what the idea is, us figuring out how and where things need to be developed, because that's the other thing. Sometimes, creative is developed and then media is like, well, that doesn't make sense for what we're trying to create here, so we actually need these other assets, but now the brand doesn't have the money to build the asset that's needed. So you have all of these different things, right? And I just say that, the testing of the media or the testing of the creative, will always, you'll know if it's resonating from the very beginning if it's built in. You would, there are creative agencies that do testing. I'm not privy to that necessarily because I work specifically on the media side. But I do know that there are times and there are opportunities in order to get people, even internally within your organization, to kind of look and see if this makes sense for a particular community. In Publicis, we have a group called the IPC, the Inclusive Product Council, and they actually will take a creative, brief, idea, storyboarding, etc., and run it through the lens of culture, and then be able to provide feedback to, that particular team on whether or not this is going to resonate with a particular audience. I don't know that every agency or holding company has something like that. Yeah, it is cool, right? Because you can go to them at any time throughout your process and figure out whether or not there are inherent biases that you've been not knowingly placed into a brief, placed into the creative, placed into, any part of the process that they can then help you call out, and you can augment it at that time. I'll tell you that I was on a new business pitch recently, um where, throughout the process, I had to go back and tell the team, hey, I don't think we want to put an angry, like a black man, and then say they are angry because da 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 da, right? Black men and anger can't go side by side on a particular creative campaign like that. We can't have that happen. um and but there are things like that where not everyone has the wherewithal to kind of turn that on and know that that is a particular nuance for a community, where, the IPC would have caught it, I would have caught it, because of my background and my expertise. But not everyone catches, and that's how things slide, right? That's how things end up in the world, and social media gets a hold to it, and then you're like, oh crap, that's not what we actually intended it to do, but that's the impact of what actually came out.
Yeah, yeah. No, I was gonna mention a recent one, but I don't. It's not worth.
We don't even need to talk about the
But there,
couple of
yeah,
recent ones that
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Um, Shifting gears a little bit because the IPC, great concept. It got me thinking a little bit. One thing I've been talking to guests about is Los Angeles. Um, you know, I'm skewed being in LA, but like there's so many huge events coming the next 3 years. We have World
Yeah.
Cup,
Yes.
Super Bowl, and Olympics. Is like, do you see, or are you having conversations? Is there going to be an influx of investment in Los Angeles coming um,
Ooh, I
from a
I
media
I
perspective, or is there conversations
yeah.
being had?
I honestly don't know. That I'm not necessarily privy to. I do know that there are a lot of brands who are thinking about, well, what's next, right? And they're thinking about specifically around World Cup and how can I be a part of it without necessarily being a part of it, because listen, those sponsorships have been sold out for years, like they're gone. But how do you as a brand be part of a conversation that either you've already been a part of, or this is your new dipping your toe into the water and trying to see whether it's hot or cold or mild, or how are we going to
Can I
fit
play
in here?
here?
Yeah, how do we play here? And I think part of it is, yes, it's a good opportunity to start to talk to an audience, but it's not your only opportunity, right? And I think a lot of times brands want to use these big events as, well, that's the big event and that's how I'm going to talk to the multicultural audience because I know that they're all watching, but that's the only time I'm going to talk to them, right? And I'm not going to continue that. Again, this goes back to consistency of inclusion. I'm not going to talk to them at any other time during the year because I will get them with my mass media. That goes back to CPM, lowest CPM. So you're optimizing basically for eyeballs and not optimizing into experiences or places that they are going to feel more connected to you to actually want to do something to buy your brand. You cannot, I think if I can stress anything, it's our audiences are not transactional. They've never been transactional. You can do that with everybody else. And I'm going to say that. You can do that with everyone else. You cannot treat our communities as a transaction. They want engagement. They want to feel connected to you. They want to feel like they have a relationship with you. And if they don't feel that they have that relationship and it's a one-off or you know, it's inconsistent, they're going to be inconsistent with you.
100. Yeah. I mean, I don't even want to add commentary to that because that's such a good point. And I think I'm going to plug this because I usually don't market this, but one idea I've had about Los Angeles in particular, and it connects exactly to what you're saying. I think what's great about us having these 3 consecutive years is it's an opportunity to truly connect with us. It's because
Absolutely.
it's not an event. You're talking about 3 events over 3 years
Yep.
in the most multicultural city in the world.
Mhm.
So like I feel like Los Angeles really represents an opportunity for brands to connect with consumers in a deep way because
Yeah.
it's not this one off like you mentioned. You've got 3 huge events that are, let's be real, it's driven by multicultural consumers. Like
Absolutely.
not
I
only in Los
mean,
Angeles, but the whole world's going to be here,
but the
right?
whole world, right? And even if you look at, I don't know specifics around ratings, so I'm not going to really go into that. But even if you look at the last couple of World Cups, they were driven primarily by Hispanic audiences, right? And quite frankly, even those who are non-Spanish speakers would watch the games on Spanish networks because the commentary was that much more colorful. And and even though they may not necessarily understand what's being said, they understand what's happening on the field, right? And so that in of itself, tells you how much that community has brought to the world of soccer, the world of football, and where it's going, right? A it would be a miss for a brand not to want to do this and not to want to be on the ground in LA connecting with audiences on I think the other part that we don't always talk about is the experiential piece, and the experiential is the relationship piece of marketing and media that connects everything else, right?
And
And
that's what's really resonating with younger audiences.
that is
Because
what's
like,
resonating with you. They want to feel you. I mean, I don't know any other way to say it, but they want to touch, feel, be a part of, and anything that is Instagrammable or TikTokable, they want to be a part of. And if your brand is not Instagrammable or TikTokable, honestly, what they don't necessarily see a reason to be a part of you, a reason to buy your products.
and I'm gonna, back to another thing you said. If your brand's not inclusive, who's driving TikTok? It's
Who
creators of color,
it,
like,
hello,
right? Like,
who still don't get their just due on TikTok.
but they're
And
starting all the trends, like all the
they're
trends that
starting
are worth
all the
trending. Yeah.
trends. Absolutely. And I think that's part of what we are seeing as a trend holistically in advertising right now is, the move from, I won't necessarily say programmatic, but the move to include more creators in your content or in your content and how you're building out assets and connecting with communities, but you're not doing it with the folks that are actually starting the trends. You're doing it with the folks who are, for a lack of a better word, co-opting the trends as their own because they are bigger names, in air quotes, bigger names, lower engagements, but more followers. So goes back to, again, what's the impact? What impact are you looking for? Are you looking for eyeballs, or are you actually looking for sales? Because those macro influencers who have millions of followers don't necessarily have the same impact as your micro or your local influencers who are going to drive sales to your local restaurants, stores, retail, TikTok shop, etc. Right?
I'll share an anecdotal one happening now. The whole quarter zip trend.
Oh gosh.
So I'm not a fan of quarter zips, but I saw a hilarious one and it was like it's like black and brown influencers that it's just hilarious. And Columbia, the clothing brand, did a really great like thing with one of the influencers like of color, and I was like, man, that's how you do it.
That's how you
They
do
gave them
it.
their dues, and
Mhm.
I was, I don't like quarter zips, but if I was gonna buy one, I would have bought one from Colombia. But and
Yeah.
then to your other point about viewership, I also don't know the viewership stats, but one thing I do know is like World Cup dwarfs Super Bowl. We think
Yeah.
of Super Bowl like I mean it's double if not triple the amount of viewers. I had someone else on the podcast um, who focuses on promoting soccer, football in the U.S. among Black audiences. He
Mm.
shared a stat that I didn't know that Black viewers are the fastest growing viewers of soccer in the U.S., which I thought was really cool. Which is another like check to like you got to get in
Absolutely.
here, you know.
And quite frankly, I subscribe, and I have been trying to do this research myself, but I am a party of one. on my team. But there was an idea, and so I'm glad that they shared that with you, because there was an idea that I had earlier this year around World Cup is international, right? It is not. It's and it is more um uh intentional in its audiences than any other sport in the world. So soccer is also global. And when you think about the global majority are people of color. And so you have people playing on some of these Italian, the French teams, the London teams, who are from different countries in Africa. I
Mbappe. I mean, like he's the biggest star in the world. Like, I mean,
yes,
he was incredible. Yeah.
and so you don't think that that naturally, though, the people who are migrating from those countries in Africa to the US, or even any other parts of the world, are not watching soccer, because soccer is bigger globally than basketball, NFL, um you MLB, you name it,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Why do you think the NFL is now doing multiple international games over the last several years? Because where is their viewership going to come from? How do they increase? Who they're bringing into the fold, because they've already have the U.S. market on lock. Where else
I
do
mean,
you
to
go?
bring it full circle, I mean, why do you have Bad Bunny playing the
Why do you
halftime
have
shot?
Bad Bunny playing at the halftime show? Right.
Hundred
Why do
percent
you
in Spanish.
and it's not just about Bad Bunny. Let's talk about um let's actually talk about who runs the halftime show and who's responsible for getting the acts for the halftime show. And that is Rock Nation. Rock
Oh yeah.
Nation signed a deal with the NFL to be able to do this over the last several years. And over the last several years, you have seen nothing but multicultural or others participating in a national platform and a global platform once a year. Now, none of them get paid. We already know this. None of them actually get paid for it, right? They have to build their own sets and crew and all the other things. The money that's donated from the sponsor of the halftime show is actually donated, you know. So, but you can also see that over the last several years, that time period, that 12 to 15 minutes of the halftime show is probably the most viewed out of the entire game.
Yeah. I mean, like, full transparency. I mean, I love sports, but I'm not a football fan. But I watched the
That's
halftime.
okay. We'll
I
forgive you.
I watched the half. Like, I was super excited for Kendrick Lamar. I mean, that was incredible. And
Yeah.
LA native, right? I mean, just yeah.
And that wasn't the first one. Remember the first Rock Nation, I believe, halftime show was with Dr. Dre, Mary J. Blige, Snoop, 50 Cent. Yeah, like, and that was right,
That was
right.
classic. Yeah.
That classic. The year after that, I believe, was Jennifer Lopez, I want to say,
Jennifer Lopez and Shakira, maybe.
and
Yeah.
Shakira. Uh-huh. And then after that, I think it was Beyonce again.
Beyonce, The Weeknd was in there somewhere, right?
The Weekend was in there somewhere. Rihanna's been in there. Like, so these halftime shows have been very entertaining on the backs of multicultural or people of color who are in the entertainment industry, right? They're the ones driving the engagement in these platforms during that halftime show. You go to any basketball game, you go to any basketball game. What is the DJ playing during halftime? What is the DJ playing during the intermissions or the timeouts or anything like that? They're playing hip hop. They're playing popular music, but popular music just happens to be hip hop, R&B, and some pop music, which some pop music is still people of color. The influence is there.
Yeah,
The
they're
influence is
projecting
there.
that this halftime show is probably going to break records because of the international viewership.
Oh, absolutely. I would not doubt it. Bad Bunny, I give him his props because what he's been able to do in the last several years, I think most Spanish artists or would uh, want to do, right? And at some point, the, they've all had their place and their time to be able to allow for, like, they've all walked, right? They crawled and walked so Bad Bunny could run, right? Gloria Estefan, like let's go back. Gloria
Yeah.
Estefan, right? Ricky Martin, Mark Anthony. They all did what they could do so that Bad Bunny could do what he's able to do today.
Yeah, that would be awesome if he pays some sort of homage. I'm sure he's going to bring. I feel like he's going to bring one of those legends on
I'm
stage.
sure. Like
Which would be cool.
it's and the Super Bowl this year is in
Santa Clara,
Santa Clara.
NorCal.
Oh, okay, Sanford. Okay, got it. Yeah, that would be cool. Even if he brought in some hyphy, that would be cool too.
That would be cool. Yeah, that's some E40.
Yes, 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 yes.
Awesome. Believe it or not, we're up at our time, and I like to end
Oh
with kind of
wow.
a fun section. Um, doesn't have to be necessarily marketing related, but like, what are you reading, watching, listening to that's inspires you recently?
Okay, so reading wise, I always go back to this book called The First 90 Days. It's by Michael Watkins. And it helps me with understanding transition, right? And no matter where I am in my career, there's always a transition of sorts happening. This helps me kind of take a step back, look at it from a wider lens to be able to zero in on what it is that I need to do within this new period of transition. Um, I would also say, when I got into this role, now mind you, I had been in investment for a very long time, so I kind of needed to connect investment strategy to actual media and audience behavior strategy. So getting the HBR guide on strategy helped a lot. I read a lot of Harvard Business Review.
Those are great because they're so impactful and they're
They
short.
are.
10,
and
15
and
pages.
they're yeah, and they're not hard to digest, right? And some of it goes back to, if you've ever been in an MBA program, a lot of these are case studies that you would have read in your MBA program. The one that I think every woman should read is The Unwritten Rules of Women's Leadership, and that is by Helen Appleby. And I happened to meet her through, she runs it. She was actually a mentor of mine for about 2 years. Um, but it speaks directly to what women need to learn and do and be as a leader in primarily male dominated spaces and male dominated, like, just fields. Yeah. Because it's the things that no one ever tells us that we need to know, that we need to know.
Awesome, Arnetta. This has been so great. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. If
Absolutely.
people want to connect with you, I'm sure they will. Like, what's the best way to connect with you?
My LinkedIn is always the best. I respond to every message. and I am serious about that. I respond to
Uh-oh,
every
be careful,
message.
be careful.
I know. But I do. I respond to every message. Even if I can't necessarily meet with you, I will respond and tell you, the best places or spaces or things for you to start your career, what you should be looking for, what you should be looking at. And then, if it's not me, then I'll point you to somebody that I think might have a better mentor or better lens on what you're looking for at that time.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much, Arnetta Whiteside, if you want to reach out to her on LinkedIn. And thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thanks, Mario. Thank you for having me again.
Thanks to everyone listening in. To get more multicultural insights, check us out at thinknow.com and follow us on social media. You can also subscribe to this podcast on your favorite platform.